Hello. That's the first page of one of my favorite piano pieces by Rachmaninoff. I'm David Groninger in Seattle, Washington, and today is, it's Sunday, January 3rd, 2016. And I guess I just heard on the news that the Seattle Seahawks won the big football game today, so there are a lot of very happy Seattle Seahawks fans here today. Well, each day I ask myself this question: what could I say in a 5 or 10 minute message that might help 5 or 10 million people? I write down the answers and I make a talk about that. Well, today's talk is the subject of the state of unconscious versus conscious. Unconscious versus conscious. And I think it's a very valuable exercise. If you were to you break down your life into different sections, like, well, you know, your physical, the physical, that is your body, your mind, your emotions, the financial part of your life, maybe the relationship part of your life, the creative part of your life, maybe your social conscious part of life, you know, your involvement with your community and your state and city or whatever. Take the different areas of your life and give yourself a rating on your degree of consciousness. How conscious or unconscious are you in each of these areas? Maybe give yourself a scale of 1 to 10. And just see if that might help you in identifying, well, any part of your life that might be bumpy or weak. Well, the whole idea of conscious and unconscious, unconscious is not necessarily bad, where conscious is good. They can both work to help each other. For example, when you have a habit is something that you've developed which is now fairly unconscious. You do it and you develop it as a habit, so you can do it without thinking, so you can use your mind to think on other things. Like the part of the piece that I just played, it was pretty much by habit. The very first time that you learn how to play a piece like that, it goes quite a bit, quite a bit more slowly. And it's kind of like the steps of learning that sometimes go like this: the 4 stages of consciousness in learning, where you have the unconscious incompetent, then you have the conscious incompetent, then you have the consciously competent, and then you have the unconsciously competent. And that's a habit, finally, where you're doing something at a level of competency. That is, you're being effective, you're doing it well, you're being successful at it, and you don't have to think about it too much. It's a habit. When you have your financial life in such a way that you're automatically saving money, from every paycheck you're saving money, and then automatically from that savings it goes into some investment that maybe you've already examined, regularly, so that it's also, doing pretty well in these investments. The dividends get automatically reinvested, so things keep growing. And it's like any kind of a habit that you develop that is serving you, then you're using the unconscious state to your benefit. However, if you have a habit that is not serving you, habits of overeating, habit of smoking or drinking alcohol or taking any kind of a drug to excess, or habits of procrastinating, or of feeling resentment and holding bitterness or resentment for long periods of time, being non-forgiving. These kinds of habits generally do not serve one very well. The habit of not exercising, the habit of not getting enough sleep. So it's very wise to examine, well, what are our habits? That is, what are the areas of your life that are unconscious? Examine those and find a way to make sure that your unconscious time is spent in a supportive way toward your values in your life. And so, like I say, being conscious is not better than being unconscious. When you have a habit that's in place, things are running pretty well, that's good, and that's an unconscious condition. And also, just because you are conscious of something doesn't necessarily mean that you have the advantage, because what if you have a certain state of being conscious, whereby in actuality you've got a lot of blind spots embedded in that state of consciousness. So you think you know it all, you think you're conscious, but really there's some blind spots. So that's kind of a state of, really it's a state of partial consciousness where you think you're more conscious than you are. But the whole idea is this: anything you can do in life that you can raise your level of consciousness in every part of your life, it's worth doing. It's this whole idea of understanding yourself, knowing yourself, and use the unconscious aspect of life to support your consciousness. In other words, we have to sleep at night, our body becomes unconscious, and I guess it's pretty helpful for our feelings and maybe our mind to be fairly unconscious too, to give it a rest. This benefits us so that then our body can be more awake, during the daytime. In the same way that when we take about 10 minutes of maybe quiet time during the day, maybe a couple times during the day, just to sit at our desk and just close our eyes and be still, for example, or maybe lay down on a massage table or yoga mat or something and be still and quiet, maybe with your eyes shut for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. This is a way of letting your mind go a little bit unconscious so that you can, kind of be reborn or get a little bit of a wake up again after you come out of this, resting period, and usually you're very wide awake again. So you use the unconscious times deliberately to help yourself become more conscious during your conscious times. Well, in a piano piece like this, and by the way, drinking water is fairly unconscious for me. I make sure I drink 3 of these bottles every day. It's one of the most successful habits I've had, physically. It keeps my skin clear. It's given me so many benefits, it's hard to enumerate. But if you were to look up the benefits of drinking plenty of water, and just make a list yourself, you'll be amazed. And you'll drink a lot of this stuff called water rather than soda pop or coffee or other things. Anyway, when you play a piano piece, when you start out, when you're, maybe call it the unconscious and incompetent, you're starting out like this. But you build up the stages and you get a little bit more alert to these, and the secret on one of the little tips on anything is to break it down into its parts and master each part and then kind of bit by bit put it together. In playing a piano piece, if you take one hand at a time, for example, it's a little bit easier. Rather than trying to put it together with both hands. But then, once you put both hands together slowly, now you become, a little bit more competent, consciously competent. And then as you practice it a number of times, it becomes the unconsciously competent. So then it can go something like this. It becomes very easy, and that's the idea of creating a habit. When a person learns a piano piece or anything in life, learning to drive a car, learning a particular computer process, technique, anything having to do with the work you do, as you learn, the more you learn how to do it, the easier it gets, and the more you start converting from, consciously to unconsciously. However, it's very, very wise to take plenty of time to examine your unconscious times. I think one of the most fascinating tools of doing this is to videotape yourself for 24-hour periods of a time. I think if you were to video yourself for an entire week, just keep the camera on you 24 hours a day, even when you're sleeping, so you can tell if you're screaming if you're talking in your sleep and what are you saying. If you're maybe have difficulty breathing at night that you had no idea until you actually record yourself at sleep. If you were to record yourself 24 hours a day for 7 days a week, and do that for a week, it might take you a year just to go through all that time to study about yourself during these unconscious stages. But even if you took just a month to kind of scan through it, you would learn a lot. You would see yourself during the times that you're performing your regular habits, and you will find ways to improve. So that's just one little technique. But come up with your own ideas. Look at your areas of life where you're conscious or unconscious, and ask yourself the question, well, in what way could being unconscious help me to become more conscious? Like at work, for example, maybe taking 2 10-minute breaks during a course of an 8 or 10-hour day at work, at least 2 or 3 10-minute breaks throughout the day where you're doing nothing other than just resting on like a yoga mat. I think one of the greatest things you can do at a place of work is to have a massage table, a fold-up, a portable, lightweight fold-up massage table that you can just stick in your closet or behind a desk somewhere. And when you have a 10-minute break, just get it out and unfold it and just lay on it. It's amazing what a 10-minute break can do when you're really relaxing your body and really allowing the mind to go unconscious. Well, that's pretty much the talk today. It's just that the difference between consciousness and unconsciousness, and there's nothing magical about these states. We all recognize what they are. However, it's quite devastating to people who are ignorant of ever examining their habits. I continually think it's horrible that 400,000 people a year die from cigarette smoking, and it's because of the habit they have that they rarely examine. They just allow the habit to keep right on going. I think that even if a person were to videotape themselves for a 7 days, for a 7-day period of time, watching themselves smoke, I think they would learn a lot. It would be a good step in maybe changing that habit. I think they would actually discover in their expression on their face when they started to feel some anxiety or a sense of helplessness or a sense of almost maybe emotional or energetic panic, when they had to reach for a high, something to bring them up out of something. And if they actually looked even earlier on the video, they might even see what things they were involved in that somehow pushed them into that panic state or that state of anxiety or of uneasiness, where they felt like they had to get some type of a high and smoke the cigarette. Well, that's my talk today. It's unconscious versus conscious, but it's not really versus meaning against. It's just comparing and contrasting the two. And for people that want to really excel in life, be happier in life, be healthier in life, it's very helpful to understand these two conditions that are in every part of our life: the condition of being conscious and the condition of being unconscious, in all the varying states, and to know where you're at in each part of life, and to understand how to become more conscious in the areas of your life. Well, that's my talk for the day. This is David Groninger in Seattle, Washington. And again, I'll just show you how easy something is once you get unconscious about it. A mistake there, of course. Anyway, this is David Groninger in Seattle, Washington, saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this message. Thank you.